Okay, people. So today I am joined by Phillip Gladkov, right? Who's a writer, a director, a producer, an editor, cinematographer, and an artist. Phillip, you wear a lot of hats, my friend. Welcome to
Yeah,
the podcast.
thank you, thank you.
Hey, so you just had a short film air at Dances with Films. Had
Yeah,
your world premiere, right?
yeah.
Fantastic. How was that? How did it all go?
It was incredible. I mean, it was my first time in the Chinese theater at all, like the historic Hollywood Chinese theater, let alone screening, something that I made on this huge screen, doing my first red carpet. It was all pretty exciting and a really cool experience. And I was glad to share it with the people close to me and the people who worked on the film as well. So overall, thumbs up. I've been meeting a lot of cool people at the festival, some new, hopefully, people that I will work with in the future who are doing really cool stuff. So I think overall, it's been a great experience.
This is the second year of covering Dances with Films, and I noticed it last year, and it's definitely a thing this year as well. But everyone is supportive of each other, right? You'll post something, you know what I mean? I put out the video and the review, and then you just have all these other directors being like, "Oh, well done, your thing's out. Oh, how did it go?" And just this constant communication, this constant conversation between everyone, which is, I mean, it's great. You don't always see it though at a film festival, you know.
Yeah, I wish that our field was a little bit less cutthroat and people understood that we can all go a little bit further together. Like there's not a pie that's going to run out. We are baking the pies and we can make more. And I don't think everyone understands that, and because of that you get this kind of like cold shoulders, like this fear of competition from other people, when it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't.
No, I think it's like the whole funding, because that's always the hardest thing, it seems, for people to get the funding to make their projects. And I think it's just like, oh, I don't want to help this person because then they might get the funding I'm going for.
Yeah,
When I think the big thing is, right, if people come together and help each other, right, you can bring down the costs of your projects because you're all supporting each other. Then if you're all blowing each other's projects up, more eyes are coming on it, and more funding will come,
yeah,
more things will come through that. But yeah, it's that hive mentality that a lot of people have, where it's just like, okay, I there's only room for me,
yeah,
and that is a big shame.
yeah. I think it's unfortunately a reflection of our bigger society and this kind of like one for all for one mentality, that we can kind of do everything on our own and we don't need people, and like our success is singular, and there's not this feeling of collectivity that could easily be there, but it runs deep. So I think it's deeper than just filmmaking, but we
Oh,
can remedy it everywhere, and
mm.
it's a good place to start.
Yeah, no, for sure. Right. And I think, things like Dances with Films is a great way to try and break down those barriers. I know my friend Ed Douglas in Canada. He's a part of this thing, Crazy Eights, where it's this kind of this competition type of this program where they bring a load of people, they look at the ideas, and then they make, I think, like 8 of these projects. And it's just a load of people coming together, giving their time, experience and knowledge to help these filmmakers bring their projects to life. And it's just yeah, it's a fascinating program. And it's just nice to know there's things like that. There's things like Dancing with Films out there, you know,
Yeah,
to give people that little boost to be able to bring things to life.
yeah, it's really important.
Yeah. I mean, how did Story of the Sun come to life, man?
Yeah, it's a long time in the making. Around like 2017-ish. I can't remember exactly the year. I had told the story, and it was either someone asked me to tell them a bedtime story, or I told it around a fire. I had come up with the story kind of in one go, and later refined it over the years. But I came up with a story and kind of surprised myself. Wow, this is a really cool story. Like, I should continue with this. I should make something more out of it. And that was 2017, and it's 2024.
Right. So that actually came before five and, you know, gentrification, and it came before those things.
Yeah, it came before five. It came before the Cracking Up in Five series that I did with Francis Ajipong Jr. And yeah, that's kind of how a lot of us creatives work. We have these ideas, and it's not always the right time and place for them.
Mm.
And sometimes you can get down about it, but it's important to remember that there's a time and place for everything. And just because you're not working on it right now doesn't mean that it's dead, or just collecting dust. It's in the freezer, and when you get hungry, it's always there.
Very true, man. Very true.
And
Now,
so, oh, go ahead.
oh, no, 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 no. Go, man, go.
So, years went by, and I'm a fine artist, and I've been working with birch bark since like 2015, 2016 ish. And I kept thinking about this idea of Story of the Sun, and I just realized that it would be a perfect, as an animation, one, and two, as a stop motion made out of birch bark. I just felt right. This kind of origin story, this story of early humanity, and this ancient feeling that it has, and then this natural material that's been around for millions of years. So it kind of just made sense to make it out of birch bark. And I was living in Vermont at the time and collecting a lot, and I started storyboarding the film. And it's been a slow process, but then I moved to Los Angeles, and I was like, all right, now is the time. I have to do this now, and just start chipping away at it little by little.
Right. Okay. Now, when you first came up with that idea, what was the medium that you thought you might tell this in?
I mean, originally it was just an oral story. It just something that came out, and I didn't envision it as anything more. But the more I sat with it, I mean, I realized that animation has to be the way to go, because it's so limitless.
Mm.
Animation, the only limit is your skill and your creativity. Beyond that, it's kind of like you can do anything you want. With narrative, that's not really the case, and especially you hit a hard wall really quickly financially. Ideally, you have to work within your budget. The
Yeah.
budget informs the aesthetic, as one of my friends would always say.
Mm. Like watching this, it kind of reminded me of wall paintings, like of hieroglyphics, of that kind of thing, right? Of like puppet theater. Those are the things that really came to mind watching this. There is this undeniable charm about it, right? And I think the animation, but then couple that with Tascuro Fora's narration, there just seems to be this perfect symmetry between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so lucky to find Tsukuru and to find Lionel, the composer. It was almost like when I heard Tsukuru's voice through the casting website. I got hundreds of submissions, super talented people all around, but I was very specific in what I wanted. But at the same time, I didn't know what I wanted until I heard it. I was just like, I want the voice to sound rich and ancient and full. And when I heard Tsukuru, my girlfriend popped her, who's the producer on this film, her name's Carmen Whitaker. She popped her head out of the kitchen and she was like, "That's it, that's the voice." And I also felt that way. So it was just, you know, cosmic that they saw the project, that they applied to it. It was wonderful.
Like, where do you post something like this? You know what I mean? To try and get that.
I did a lot I did like Facebook, Craigslist, Backstage, and there's other few voiceover websites that I can't remember the name, but I tried to go everywhere because, I mean, I'm someone who applies to things a lot too as a creative. So I knew that you have to cast the net pretty wide if you have a specific vision, because a lot of people are going to apply, and people are going to apply who have read what you're looking for and disregarded it, even though they don't fit. And some people are, you know, so you have to cast a wide net, and you eventually will find the right person, hopefully.
I think there are projects that can live and die on the narration. I just remember back in the day when I was just flat broke, and I was looking for some audio books. I think it was the June books. And like I had the first, but I didn't have the others. And so I found this torrent. I was like, "Oh, awesome." Boom. And I mean, I may have found a torrent, I may not have.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I'm saying.
off record.
Yes. But the voice was terrible.
Yeah, and Dune's a big book.
Oh my God.
That's a big book to sit
Yeah.
through.
Yeah, it was just this terrible voice. And I'm just like, there is no way, if I'd come across this torrent, that I could sit through that. So it was just like, yeah, you know, and there's so many other audiobooks I remember just picking up and just the voice just wrecking it. Sometimes you'll watch a documentary and you'll just be like, you know what I mean? Because David Attenborough's got that perfect voice for those animal documentaries. And sometimes you'll watch one and they're trying to go for that thing, but they're not just hitting it. Doesn't work, you know, and you can just, man, you're just out of it, right? Just that voice throws you. So it's just finding that perfect voice. And you really, you really nailed it with this one, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't take credit. I mean, I made the choice, but it was all Tukuru's voice. They're the one who brought that to the table. I got to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, no. Like, what was the guidance you gave them? You know, what did you tell them when
So,
you know,
yeah.
creating?
Yeah, so originally they had seen the script after we met and decided to work together. They had sent a version that was just recorded through a mic, and it was remote, and it was good, but there were some parts where I felt like we could go further. And I was lucky enough to have them come to my studio here at the apartment. And with Tukuru and with Carmen, the producer, we really just kind of had a collaborative session where we would record it, talk about the feeling of what is going on in the scene and how we want the audience to feel and how the narrator is feeling. And Carmen had a lot of really great insights as well, and I think contributed a lot to that part too. And it was this beautiful collaboration between the three of us. And I think that session really just Tukuru brought their best and was so receptive to the feedback, and it really shaped how the film came out.
I mean, that's an important one, right? Because you have to be open to comments and all of that kind of thing, you know, to make these things work. So, yeah, like, is this the first time you've kind of used that kind of approach for something?
I don't think it's the first time. This is my first time working with such a voiceover driven project. I mean, gentrification was also kind of like that, but this was a little bit different in a way. I've always gravitated towards collaboration, and as a director, I have most of the time a pretty specific vision about most things, but I also know there's a lot of magic that lies in between what I think I want and what an artist or collaborator can also provide. So I think it's important to leave space for that too, to have your vision and to explain it to them, but also to leave room for them to do their own little magic, because they whether it's voiceover or score, they can bring a lot to the table that you might not have ever even thought of.
Yeah, no, that's real true, man. But how did you come about that realization, right? How long into creating did you realize that actually, right? Because it's all about the vision, but when you're collaborating, right? Yeah, leave that space for the unknown, because that could be that missing spark.
I don't know if there's like an aha moment for that, and I'm still learning how to leave room for that space and do a better job of always trying to improve and always trying to listen more.
Mm,
We're all constantly growing, but I think it also came from a background of being a creator too and working on other people's projects. And there's times where for work, sometimes I'm told to do this and only this, and there's no room for me to add what I think I could bring to the table. And it hurts a little bit, but I'm like, whatever, that's what you want, you're paying me, that's I'll do what I'm required. But I know that feeling of like, I have so much more to offer if you let
mm.
me. And so I think it comes from personal experience too and personal reflection.
Yeah, I think that's always a big one. It's definitely a big one for me. I always go by that adage, right? Do unto others as you wish done to you. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, yeah, like sometimes you're working with people on something, right? They're like, oh, write something, right? Write some, copy, write a script, and you'll write that thing. You'll give it to them, and then they'll go, yeah, no, it's great. And then they'll use the original version, and you're just like, I mean, you realize that this isn't the best, right?
Yeah.
And it's but it's just, as you say, it's their thing. So you're just like, all right, your thing. We'll go with your thing. But you wish that at least your input would be listened to a bit. And then when you have those situations where everything is embraced, and it's not a case of just doing the things that you put forward, but it's just having that conversation, right?
Yeah.
And I think you realize that that's such a great way to work. So then when you collaborate, you just incorporate it. I think that's a really, you know, I think it's just useful, right? It's part of that evolution. Because I think if hold everything back, you stay stunted and you're not going to evolve, you know?
Yeah. And I'm sure that there's been times where maybe I felt people like how you made people feel how you just described. So I'm sorry if I have ever made anyone feel that way too. And like I said, we're constantly growing and learning and trying to do better.
Mm. Well, I think that's the thing, right? In those early days of doing things, of creating, yeah, I'm sure, right? That I've probably been, no, we're not doing that. This is what we're doing. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
I've definitely done that, and it's something I reflect back on, and haunts me a little bit, but in a good way, informs me of how I do want to act and how I don't want to act. And I think
Mm,
for me, it came a place of like wanting to control, and that want to control came maybe from anxiety, of fear of like things not working out. And as you grow, you hopefully become more introspective and learn more about yourself, and you know, hopefully
Yeah.
it all gets better and not worse.
Well, that's all part of that growth, right? Of, you know, learning from past situations, learning from mistakes, learning from wins, just learning from those collaborations, right? Like talking with people after and being like, yo, how was this for you? How was that
Yeah,
experience? Or just through the grapevine, you hear people talking about things, you know, and people are like, oh man, I hated working on that thing. Be like, oh shit, what did I do? What do I
yeah,
need to change? You know what I mean? So I think it's hearing and incorporating those things. Yeah, I think that's like real important. And I think people can see that growth, right? People understand that in those early projects, you may have, you know, gone about things in a certain way, but there's that pressure. You know what I mean? That pressure of being like, yo, I've just been given this money to do this thing, right? Or I've just been given this time from these people to do this thing. I need to do it. I need to make sure it works. So you can be a bit like, right, this is what we're doing. But then you learn, you know,
yeah,
and I think that's the beauty of all of this kind of stuff, you know?
yeah. It's a testament to why mindfulness is important, because if you aren't working on it in your personal life outside of film, it's going to be even harder when that pressure is there,
Mm.
because the pressure can be really big sometimes. And if you're not in control or aware of your emotions and your emotional states, it's going to all come crashing down. And I've seen it before, and it's sad, and it's something that we all felt. I think there was a panel on, I didn't go to it, but during Dances with Films, about mental health and filmmaking. And I think that's really cool that they had something like that.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think it's interesting how everything is moving in these different directions because you know, like back in the day, like it was a thing, you know what I mean? Like just to be shouted at, right? That's how it'd be like, oh, well, that's how you get things done, right? You have to
Yeah,
shout at someone and then they, you know, and then they go and do it. And then it's just like, actually, you don't need to do that, right? You can talk to people nicely
yeah,
and it's you know, it works. And I think having those conversations, right? Just it's valuable. It's very valuable. So it's good that these panels are happening and conversations are happening. You know what I mean?
100%. I was gonna say, can we backtrack a little bit to something you said about the film? You said it felt almost like cave paintings.
Mm.
Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that inspired the film and reflect on how, yes, this film was a vision of mine, but it was inspired by so much and so many centuries of humanity, and from all different cultures. And yeah, going back to all the way back to like early humans. And birch bark was actually like one of the first, not one of the first, but it was a very important material for early humans who lived where birch trees grew, because it's a very flammable material, and you can start fires with it even when it's wet because it has this oil in it that's very flammable.
Oh,
So
damn.
they found birch tar, at the sites of Neanderthals and things like that. So it's this really old material that we've had a long-standing connection with, and I think that's really special.
Yeah, that's fine. Like, how did you find that shit out, man?
I mean, research. I fell in love with this material, and I've been using it a lot. And I always learn more about it. There's always more I can learn. I've just been trying to read as much as possible to also like educate myself, and in turn educate other people through my art as well. I'm really big into ecology and mycology, the study of fungi.
Mm.
So I want to weave that even more into my work. I think the intersection of art and science is very beautiful, magical, and it's a really beautiful way to introduce science to people who might not be as open or available to it. It's not, it can be very technical sometimes and not reach all of us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
no,
think
for sure.
blending those two things is like really important.
Now, what was the thing that brought birch bark to your attention? Like, why did you think, oh, this is something I would like to work with?
Yeah. I was channeling my inner Neanderthal and no. In like 2015 or 16, my father came back from Russia from a visit to visit his family. My family is Russian. My parents came here from the former Soviet Union in the 90s, and so did my brother. And I was the first one born here in America, in the States. And so birch bark is really culturally important to a lot of Russians and Eastern Europeans in general. There's a lot of crafts that are made from it. There's a lot of traditions that revolve around it. And so he brought me back this necklace, this medallion, and also some birch slippers and a birch box container for storing bread. And so I was just really amazed by this beautiful material, and especially by that necklace. I wear it almost every day. And I was wearing it while I was working on my film 5. I was upstate New York filming a lot, and I started paying attention more to the birch trees because they kind of stand out. They're really bright in a forest. You know, you're not usually used to seeing something so bright. And so I just started spending more time observing them and slowly collecting like the paper that falls off of them, off the ground. And I kind of just started building that relationship and that appreciation for them. And I would just kind of collect odd scraps here and there on the birch forest floor. And eventually, just as an artist, I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to make a collage out of this. And it was a really cool way to connect with the environment around me, and also in a way connect with cultural roots that feel very far away at the moment, and a way to bridge those two things together. And I'm working with this, you know, culturally important natural material, but I'm doing it in a way that's not traditional, in a way that's kind of a little bit different. So I think it's really cool to explore that too as an artist.
Yeah. Damn. That's really interesting. I'm really interested about the slippers made of birch as well.
If you go on the internet, there are slippers, there are baseball caps. I mean, people all around the world. Here in North America, many indigenous people made canoes out of them. There's just so many uses for this bark and for this tree. Like I can't list them all. There's so many. If you process the bark with heat in a certain way, it makes tar, and that tar was used to bind tools together. It's almost like glue. It also can repel some insects because of the smoky smell of it. There's just so many different uses, and I think that's why wherever humans lived, they developed a relationship with this tree. And I kind of want to bring that reverence back into the mainstream, because as we've become a little bit is a maybe not the right word, as we've become more disconnected from the natural environment, we've lost a lot of those relationships, and it's become easier to kind of lose that connection with the environment, and in turn kind of turn our backs on what's going on with the world as far as climate change, as far as environmental destruction, because a lot of us don't have that close relationship to a place anymore. So it's easier to look away when something's happening, you know, over there. Or so it's just a small thing that I think is small and big at the same time, that I'm trying to educate people a little bit more about ecology and about these trees, and just get them like curious, just to spark a little bit of curiosity.
Yeah, no, it's definitely had me thinking, because it kind of sounds like birch is a bit similar to hemp, right? And we're seeing more hemp products now all of a sudden, right? And then you learn that actually hemp was a material being used back in the day, and it's better than paper, right? It's better than cotton. But due to, you know, William Hearst and different things like that, it got repressed, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how there are these materials that we used to embrace, we used to use, but due to just corporate shenanigans, you know what I mean? Like
That's
we
a perfect
don't
way to put it.
use. Yeah, so it's fascinating, and I think it with things like this, with things like Story of the Sun, you help bring things back to the light. You know what I mean? No pun,
Yeah,
but
no
yeah.
pun intended. That's great.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like,
Yeah.
oh no,
Oh, someone asked me like what impact do I wish to have with Story of the Sun, kind of like in a big way. And I don't know, I kind of have to humble myself. Like, I don't think that this film is gonna, save the world or anything like that. But like I said, just to spark curiosity in people, to make them feel something, to make them ask some questions, that puts them on a path that the rest is up to them. Um, Especially for children watching this film, like when we're kids, we're like sponges and we soak up moral lessons and things like that in a very subconscious way. And I think this film is full of tales of morality and right and wrong and cautionary tales. So I think
mm,
for kids, it's especially important to see it in like a digestible way with puppets and
yeah. I mean, I think one big thing about the story, right? Firstly, if someone's like, "Oh, I've got this great story," and be like, "Okay," and it's like 7 minutes, you'd be like, "Shut the fuck up!" Like, there's no way you can tell me this great story in 7 minutes, right? A beginning, a middle, and end, right? Consequence, yearning, like in seven. No, it's not happening. But you hit it, and you're just like when you have this story, right? And it's just like this discovery of fire. You'd be like, well, yeah, obviously that then would happen. Yes, it would lead to that. That's the way humans do things. You know what I mean? And so it makes so much sense. So much sense. It's fascinating in the way that you told this. And I think it is one of those things that would be, and listen, I'm an adult. I really enjoyed the heck out of this, but it definitely would work with children. I think you could take this to schools, because obviously no one wants to be dictated to, and what I mean, be like, you should do this. But when you watch something like this, right, those lessons kind of seep into you. I remember just back in the day growing up, you had the Transformer cartoon, you had He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and there
yeah.
would always be these corny messages, especially with He-Man at the end, right? It'd be like, hey kids, and if you remember, me and Orko had a big fight, but we're friends and we talked it out. And you're just like, oh my day. But it kind of seeps in, right? It seeps in, and you pick these things up. But nowadays it's so much reality TV, and this person slept with this person, and they got away with it, and they stole, and it's just like, if you want to implement change, you have to start early, and you have to put in those messages. right? When you think about being on the underground, right? The subway, you'll see multiple copies of one poster. Especially going up escalators, you see that thing over and over again, and it sticks in your memory, right? And you might not remember the name or something, but the color will stick with you. So when you see that color associated with that shape, you'll be like, oh, that's that new snack, that's that new thing.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to see things constantly to absorb them, right? So you have to start early. So giving kids something like this to digest, and it's perfect because then so many things can build out of it, right? A talk about relationships, a talk about resources, a talk about, the environment. So many things can branch off and you can have conversations about. So I think it's just, yeah, it's got such a life, for it, right? The things that you could do with this. So, you might, feel humble and think, my little film can't really change the world. But hey, it's like a pedal in a stream, man. It's going to be that ripple, that ripple to change.
Yeah. Yeah. I do believe in that. That's why I do it. And also because I just need to do it because I feel like I just need to. But it's really important to care and to try everything you can do to express that care in whatever way you can as a person.
Yeah, no.
The world needs a lot of love right now, a lot of love and care.
Oh man, yeah.
But
Definitely needs a hug.
that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother podcast.
I know, it's just like where to start with that one. But
Yeah,
I do think it's little things, right? It's little things. It's like the stories we tell. It's like the interactions that we have. So things like this do impact. I think people will see it,
yeah.
and there's conversations that will start from it.
And with Story of the Sun, it's in a way it's kind of like a love letter to humanity because, not to spoil it for anyone, but in the end, you don't quite know, but you hope that they learn their lesson. And it's kind of where we're at now. Like, we're causing irreparable damage, but one way or another, we're gonna learn what we need to do, and a lot of us are already learning and already know, but as a whole, it's gonna take us maybe a little bit longer to collectively learn it and grow, and it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. I think it's the models that we live within, right? With corporations constantly looking for profit, and it's not just, you can't just make slightly more than you did last year. You have to make exponentially more, right? Even the thought of having to make more seems kind of preposterous when you think
Yeah,
about things, because how many you know, light bulbs do you think you should be selling? You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like,
and
how
when you
many
make
cars, how
yeah,
many, right? And especially when you're trying to put out the message of, being sustainable, conserving energy, but you still want to make a profit on these things, right? So it's this push to make more, to make more, to make more. And that then fuels like deforestation and just, burning, by putting pollution in the environment, just so many things. So I think there's definitely things that we can do,
yeah,
new mindsets we can take on, but it is that larger picture with corporations where it has to change on that level, and that's
yeah,
the issue.
yeah, and that's something I want to explore in my work too, right? Because when we talk about these larger issues, it's like humanity versus the environment sometimes is how it's framed. But it's, in reality, it's kind of like, well, I mean, a lot of us would like these bad things to stop happening, but we're not the ones directly
Yeah.
in control of them. So it, in the larger scheme, it is humanity and the environment. But in the scheme of our society, yeah, there's clearly certain players making these decisions, and a lot of people saying, please stop doing this. And then they're like, nope.
Yeah. But it's framed like it's a you and me situation.
Yeah.
Right? It's framed like, well, if you just stopped eating meat, everything would be better. And it's
Yeah.
just like
I
that's
did stop eating meat, and it hasn't gotten
yeah. Yeah,
better.
because that's not the issue. Right? It's not the it's not the way necessarily the way things are farmed, and things have to be farmed in a certain way to help the soil. And you know what I mean? There's all different things that have changed, but the big thing are the way corporations work. Right? You know, when you look at electric cars, and everyone's like, electric cars will be better, but then how are you getting those minerals to make those
Yeah, you see.
batteries?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And no one's talking about that.
Yeah. Like,
Right?
well,
The
what
fact,
is the trade-off for our comfort and knowledge of, oh, we're doing something green, having an electric car, when, you know, the people in the Congo are mining it in conditions that, you know, is something we'd expect to see in the dark ages and not in 2024, you know?
yeah, yeah. And it's not to say you can't mine, right? But when you have a company that if they're operating in the States, in the UK, and they have to abide by certain health and safety regulations, right? That's what they will do. But the minute they go somewhere where they don't have those laws, they're like, okay, right, we're going to strip everything back. We're going to do it. And then you just like, shouldn't you just operate the same everywhere, regardless of what the laws are? Right? Shouldn't that be your ethos, right? In
Yeah.
the core of what you do? Because a lot of these people want to talk about, we stand for this. We're about this. You know, we're putting up a pride flag. We're supporting Black History Month. We're, helping women get into employment. You're doing it when you have to do it. But the minute there aren't those restrictions,
Yeah.
you go crazy.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I think a lot of the time are fueling the issues that we're facing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we,
Oh,
we,
man.
we went there. I mean, see what Story of the Sun done already? We're talking about these big issues, these big questions. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't make art in a vacuum. All of these things going on around us affect us so much. You know, the rage we have for these companies for selling our future away, for selling our grandchildren's, children's future away, so that they can have like another yacht, another island,
Yeah.
you know. But I feel like we will be collectively judged as humanity in the future, if there is a future. I'm hopeful that there will be, or if aliens come and, you know, they have history lessons in their classrooms, we will all be collectively judged for it, for not stopping it as well, I think.
Oh, for sure. Because just thinking about, a sport, right? Like a team sport, when you're watching that game, and you might go, oh man, that was a great goal that player scored, or the touchdown catch was incredible. But a few weeks removed, you're being like, yeah, wasn't it good when Washington won that game? I mean,
Yep.
that's a hard thing to say because Washington weren't winning anything last year. But anyway, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
you talk about it as a whole. You're not breaking it down into those individual parts. So yeah, as you say, people will just go, humans were dumb. And
Yeah.
they won't go, the governments were the bad ones. So it'd just be like humans were dumb.
Yeah. It will just take someone in the right place of power to mess it up for everyone. You can have, a very forward-thinking populace, but you just put one person at the top of it, and it won't matter. So that's why collective action is important. That's why creativity and action is important, because it's David versus Goliath, honestly, in many ways. And back to, we were talking about collaboration in filmmaking. It's in everything. We need to learn to work together with each other and find the people that we work well with, so that we can slowly increase our numbers and make the changes that need to happen. It's easier said than done, though.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the fact that, your girlfriend, right, Carmen Escobar Whitaker, right? She was the producer in your film. She helped you with all of these things. Now, obviously that wasn't the reason you thought I need to take this girl out, right? Like, but when did you discover, what was the point where you thought, oh, we can actually, work together? Because some people can, they can be involved, right? They can form romantic relationships, but they could not work together.
Yeah.
So it's finding that balance, right? Having the ability to do that is huge.
Yeah. Well, when we first met each other, I think we immediately fell in love with each other's creativity as well as our other personality traits. I, from a very early on, really admired her creativity. And prior to this project, we made a lot of music together and would just share a creative space, maybe not as much intertwined creative projects, but we shared a lot of creative space. And it started with just me constantly consulting her along the point of making this film, to the point where I was like, okay, well, her role now is bigger than just, asking my girlfriend for advice. Like, she's, helping me make critical and important decisions for the direction of this film, and helping with a lot of logistical things. So it would be disingenuous if I didn't include her in the capacity that I did, because she was having such a huge role on this film. And I think it's just the start for us working together, because we just love spending time with each other and talking and exploring creativity. Talking about ideas is kind of our love language. So naturally it flows into our work. I mean, like with any creative partnerships, there's going to be times where you clash heads or something, but I think it was a little bit easier on this one, because it was, for the most part, this idea that I had already kind of flushed out, I had a vision for, and she was there to support it and to bring it to life. And so I'm curious how things will evolve on, say, a 50-50 collaborative project. And I know we welcome the challenges, because that's just who we are, and we love growth orientated mindsets. Like, a good challenge is good for us because we'll grow from it. So I'm excited to work with her more.
Nice, man. That's beautiful. That's really nice. It's really nice.
Yeah, I have to say a huge thank you to her on this film, because she helped so much, and I couldn't have done it without her, and I'm really grateful for that.
Man, yeah, no, I think it's great to see that kind of thing, because I think there's so many times when people don't acknowledge the help that they receive, right? And so it's great when you see people do that,
especially men who are famous authors, filmmakers, and behind the scenes is their spouse or partner doing so much work and just being in the shadows of it, you know,
Oh
kind of.
yeah, there's a huge history
And then
there.
it comes out, you know, an article
Mhm.
50 years later, 30 years later,
Yeah.
the secret of who actually wrote the book, you know. So I do not want to participate that. I'm not perfect, and I make mistakes, but I do not. I consciously am trying to be a better person, to be a better example of how men should act, and so I um I want to make sure that I'm doing it right.
Mm. Well, no, I mean it's clear that you are, man. It's clear you are, and you have a great project to show for it. I
Thank
mean, something else that really worked with this was the music, right? Lionel Cohen's, score is great. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, it was kind of a similar story with Tsukuru, where when I heard Lionel's music, I was like, okay, I can see it. I think that he also specifically sent me a demo of what he thought the world sounded like, of what he thought the soundscape sounded like. And I just remember being like, wow, this is really close. This is like, I didn't even, we didn't have a sit down session yet or anything of like, we had a brief meeting, but it informed me that, okay, he gets it. And that's so
Mm.
important with these things. Like, does someone get it? Because if they don't, it's going to be an uphill battle of
Yeah.
trying to make them understand it. And maybe they fully won't. Maybe they have their own vision of it and it's a good vision, but it just doesn't align with yours. And it doesn't matter how talented they are. If they don't align, then what's the point? You're going to be making a score for a different film.
Mm.
And Lionel, he's very professional and he has, years of experience on me. So it's really cool to work with someone who is a bit further ahead than you and has a little bit more experience. And it was just really easy working with him because of that. I would just be like, hey, this is my vision. Get as specific as I can about it. And he would execute. And then we'd talk about it. And if there were changes, we'd make them. And if not, it was just awesome to listen to the music over and over again.
Oh man, yeah. No, it was just really interesting how all the components seem to work with this. And
Yeah.
as I say, it's a short period of time, right? 7 minutes. It's not long. So being able to craft everything perfectly so it fits within that space, there is a definitive skill to do that, to make it work. So man, yeah, you killed it with this.
Thank you. Thank you. I would, a friend of mine corrects me a little bit when I say things like "you killed it" or he's like "you brought it to life."
Well, yeah. I mean, we could say that you have birthed something special.
I
You
mean,
know what I mean?
I'm guilty of that too. I'm like, oh, you killed it. Like, this is sick, you know? No, it's healthy. it's it's interesting our choice of language.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. But it's that weird one where it's just like you're saying the thing, but you're meaning the reverse of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, it's cool. I do it too. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, has your, because you came up with this story, as you said, before the other films, right? Like, how do you think your art has evolved, right? And the fact that you made it this now, right? Do you ever think of what it might have looked like if this was the first thing that you did?
Yeah. I don't know if I had the skills to do this back then. I'm sure I would have figured it out and made it. but I think everything has its right place, and that's also what I have to tell myself, to not go crazy and crazy with regret, or what if, what if I made this film, what if I did this differently. Everything kind of happens when it does. um as far as how I've evolved, I feel like the quality of my work gets better and better. um I mean, my own personal growth improves as time goes on, and as I overcome challenging things, and as I have supportive people lovingly shine a light on where I have room to grow. And so that reflects in your work too.
Oh, sorry. Man.
It's all good. Um, I think quality wise, my work has definitely increased, and I'm still exploring the same things though. With Five, with the first film I made ever to get into film school, like with this, it's always about exploring humanity and humanity's relationship with our environment, because those things just matter so much to me and spark so much thinking and thoughts and ideas in me. It's something I'm, constantly having a mild existential crisis about, is what are we doing here? Why are we treating, the land in this way? What can we do better? How do you get people to care?
Mm,
What am I doing? What can I do more of? How can we organize? How can we do these things? It's just stuff I'm thinking a lot about, and it makes me just need to process it sometimes through art, through film. And moving forward, I do want to make some things that are a bit more emotional, that are a bit more expressionistic. I'm very methodical in a lot of my art, from the birch paintings to my films. I'm very analytical, logistical, methodical. I have a plan, a scheme. I'm very much thinking. And there's a big part of me, and I do include emotion in my work, and I hope that, Story of the Sun, there's definitely moments where I want people to feel things and feel emotion, but there's a part of myself that I want to explore more, where it's more feeling and less thinking.
right, right. Okay. I mean, do you think, like, you talk about always kind of seeming to gravitate towards like an environmental lilt. So do you think it was kind of like your Neanderthals in Story of the Sun throwing that first rock, right? It was just that kind of something sparked, and now you're kind of chasing this thing. You're constantly looking to grow it and expand it and see where it will take you.
Yeah, in some ways. I think it's an itch in my own life that I'm constantly needing to scratch, especially living in cities. I yearn for a connection to the natural environment that I don't quite have, and it constantly makes me think of, why are we living so detached from the thing that ultimately sustains us and has sustained us the most. And like I said, it's an existential crisis that's, yeah, an itch I am constantly needing to scratch. So naturally, I'm processing it through art. It's the things that I can't fully answer myself.
Mm. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. But being able to, have that outlet to be able to tell these kind of stories, right, and explore these topics, that's a great thing, right? That's a skill.
Yeah, it's also a huge privilege to be able to. I mean, there's people right now around the world who are being directly affected by climate change, by war, by all these things that, you know, us in safer places have the ability to process and to express through art. And a lot of people right now are just surviving, you know, day to day. So that's what humans do, is when our needs are taken care of, and sometimes even in the midst of them not being taken care of, we, once everything is settled, we want to create. It's throughout human history. We got our food, great, we're going to make cave paintings now and draw the food that we had, the things that are important to us. So it's inherent in all of us, and I wish more people felt like they could explore it, because I think in our societies, people very quickly get shut down to art, to singing, to music. And it's painted as these people who are good at it do it, everybody else consumes it. Versus back in the day when song was just tradition for everyone, everyone would participate. It wasn't about someone being on a stage and everybody looking at them. It was something we did to commune together. And same with art, you know, whether it was everyone would work on their own clothes, make them beautiful in traditional ways. We've lost a little bit of that. Now it's kind of like American Idol, you know. It's only for the some, and everybody else, you sit back and watch.
Well, I mean, when you think about school, right? And if you take art in school, right, you're being judged.
Yeah.
You're being told that's not good. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not art, right? But then you go to an art gallery and you'll see all of these different versions in, you know what I mean, iterations of what art could be. But at an early age, we're being put into a box of art is only this thing. Nothing else is art.
Yeah.
And I think that then bleeds into how you know, incorporate that thing into your life, and the way you look at these different forms, where some people are like, that's not art. Oh, I only like this. I only like
Yeah.
that, because, you know, that's what, you know, was framed as art to them at that early point.
Yeah. I'm extremely lucky that both of my parents are artists, and from an early age, that part of me was not only not shut down, but encouraged to grow. Um, like my mom was just always supportive of us and taking us to museums when she could, and encouraging us and never shutting us down. And I learned a lot of technical skills from both of my parents early on. And because of that, you know, I don't have that aversion to showing myself to the world in that way, which unfortunately some people had that shut down. And it takes so much for them to feel safe to do that again, and to have the space emotionally to not have any shame or negative feelings around something that should feel very positive and is crucial to our existence as humans.
Oh, it really is. And I think, you know, lockdown really kind of emphasized that, when there was that separation from, you know, the environment, and the separation from art, right, and creativity, that, yeah, a lot of people suffered.
Yeah.
You know?
But a lot of people also began doing things just to do them because they had the time. If they weren't essential workers, they had the time to do that, and they kind of had the isolation to do it. So I feel like a lot of people started doing things that maybe previously they would have never done, whether it's baking or some forms of art and music. People, you know, in the safety of their own home, were like, I'm going to try this, you know, like this thing that maybe the world's ending. So maybe I should, you know, take up painting because I never was able to, and because I want to, stuff like that. So yeah, there was that kind of positive silver lining of it.
Yeah, if you had those resources available to you,
Yeah.
you were able to then explore those things. So it was that interesting, situation that you were seeing, that when people had things available to them, they'd explore. But when you didn't, you saw a regression,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. I personally, during COVID, actually, I feel like I put aside my creativity for a little while. Like I might have come out with like two birch pieces over the course of like 2 years, but other than that, I kind of slowed down with the filmmaking. I maybe was playing music a little bit more, but I kind of was, it was a reevaluating time for me. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I should have did more COVID, but it's at the same time I did what I needed to do.
Mm. Well, yeah, and I think it's like sometimes it's those other things, right? Which is the scaffolding to be able to create something else down the line, right?
Yeah.
That you need to do those things. You need to have those conversations. You need to have that introspection. So then you can fully blossom into that next iteration of who you're going to be.
Yeah, it's like the space between the inhale and the exhale. Like it's
Mm.
important too. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
the scaffolding metaphor too.
I mean, what do you use to kind of fuel your creativity? Because, when you look at something like Story of the Sun and those techniques utilize the visual elements to create that story, it's not simple, right? Like you could look at it and think it is simple, but it's not simple. When you break that down, there's so much technique there, right? There's so much imagination to be able to tell it in that way and that style. So, yeah, what do you utilize to fuel that?
I feel like for me, the creativity is the fuel. Like it's fuel. It's like gasoline burning on fire, and it's what makes me want to sit at a computer for 10 hours. It's what makes me, when I'm falling asleep, I'm just thinking about these ideas. Oh, tomorrow I got to try this shot. Oh my God, what if the sun comes up? Like it, it's what makes me put up with the parts of the process and the parts of life that might not be as pleasant, because I have this like burning desire to make this thing. It sometimes feels a little bit, neurotic in a way where I'm like, I really want to make this film. I really like this vision needs to come to life. And I'm like, at the computer for 8 hours and I haven't like eaten, and my girlfriend's like, Phil, you should step away from the computer now. And I'm like, thank you. uh, yeah, it's kind of like an internal desire to bring this thing to completion, to explore these creative ideas, and that really is what forces me to, watch tutorials. How do I do this thing that I've never done? How do I learn this thing? How do I come back to a project after like 2 weeks of not working on it and feeling like procrastination or like avoidance? I think it's I don't know if everyone feels this way, and it makes me feel lucky to have that desire, because without it, I feel like my life would be a lot harder. It would be a lot. I would be searching. I'm already searching for a lot of meaning, but I think I would be searching for even more.
Mm. Yeah, I think creativity is that wonderful thing that can help people navigate that path, right? It's a lighthouse
Yeah,
for you to kind of steer you through that darkness at times.
yeah, and it's so different for everyone. For some people, it's obviously like some people, it's like how they work on their car, or how they cook. And for some people, it's just how they approach life, what kind of day they have, like the intention they put into communicate. It's so different for everyone, and I don't want to make it seem like this is the only way that it matters, or this is the way it is. The way it is for me, that's what creativity looks like. It's so different across different people, and everyone has it. I think it's very important to really acknowledge that, because some people might hear what I said and be like, well, I don't have that, I'm not creative. But that's not true. We all, as humans, we all have it. It's just, how does it reflect in us? How does it actualize in us?
Well, I think one thing that's really interesting about these kind of conversations is you hear from so many different people, right? And everyone's got that different approach, that different relationship with the art form. So although it might be different than what you do, you hear the passion, right? And the way someone else navigates something. And you can be like, oh, that's interesting. Or, I've not looked at it like that. Right. Or, oh, I do something similar. So you can just see those different ways, those different possibilities. It's like a multiverse. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? In Marvel, you've got like the 616 and the six, you know what I mean? There's different Spider-Man, there's different, Xavier's, and there's different, but with art, it's similar thing, right? Because there's so many different approaches. And so when you see other people's approaches, it's fascinating, and it can help fuel what you do, or if you're stuck with, there's so many times I might have been stuck with something, and I've heard someone talk about something, and I'm been like, oh man, that's just sparked something.
Yeah,
Or I'm going to try that technique, and that helps you then get over that hump to move to your next level.
exactly. And even the way that you've set this up and created this space for us to have this conversation, and how you've asked really thought-provoking questions and just guided this conversation, like, you've created, this is your creation, this space and this conversation we're having right now. And not everyone can do that either. I don't know if I would be able to do that for others. And so I appreciate that a lot. And thank you for sharing that creativity with me.
Oh man, I mean, Kelly is the one that, that
Shout out.
brought this together, man. You know what I mean? Kelly's great. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, there's certain people that, man, that really do a great job in that PR space, and it's just, I think you'd have these conversations. I mean, it's just the way you've talked about the work, right? There's an eloquence in it, but this purity, right? The fact that, what I mean, you're giving everyone their flowers, right? Like, that's a big thing, it's talking about the art form in a way, right? It speaks volumes. It speaks volumes, you know what I mean? So I think, yeah, you'd be doing what you're doing and talking about all of that regardless of, but I appreciate the words, man. I appreciate the words. Like,
Yeah. I mean it.
how can people see Story of the Sun?
Well, it's currently doing a festival run. So unless there's a screening, which the best way is to follow me on Instagram, because any screening I have, they will be the first to know there. I'm not shy about announcing it there. So if you follow me on Instagram, it's just my name, Phillip Gladkov, PhillipGladkov. You can also visit Story of the Sun and sign up to the email newsletter, storyofthesun.com. And yeah, for now it's in festivals, and I'm having private screenings here and there. And next year it'll be out to the public, and hopefully everyone can see it sooner rather than later.
Nice. And any festivals coming up?
I'll get some answers next week. So fingers crossed with me, everyone.
Okay. All right.
I don't know what the next one is, but we'll find out soon.
Well, I'm sure all of those festivals are going to be clamoring to be able to screen this, because it is something that talks to kids and adults, right? It's universal in that, which is a great thing, because some things they're not, they only speak to one group. It really, there is a short film called Humo, like HUMO. It's from a creator, it's a Rita Basaluto, right? And it's this stop motion animation, and it really, it really reminded me of your story.
I'll have to check it out. I just wrote it down.
Yeah, no, I think you would enjoy it. I think you would definitely enjoy it. But it's I think this kind of story, it's great, right? And I think it can really resonate with you. So I'm glad you've got it, and I hope that this just blows up for it. Well,
ignites. Yeah. We can use a fire metaphor. We'll use all the blows up, ignites.
It spawns into something, right? It blossoms.
Yeah. It's funny. Now I know. I mean, my friend had the same effect on me. Now, when you say certain things, you'll think about it. I still say them. Like, I still say, "Oh man, you killed it." But now I definitely think about it.
Yeah, you definitely got into my head, man.
Language is powerful. Language is powerful.
Oh, for sure, man, for sure, man. And do you have another project like on the burner? Like,
I
ready?
want to start. I have a lot. Some of them involve birch, some of them don't. Definitely want to start my next animation, and that one I want to release straight to online so that everyone can enjoy it immediately and share it. So look out for that. If you follow me, you'll be in the loop, and I'm really excited to start on my next one. This was my first animation, by the way.
Oh,
ever.
damn.
So let's see what the next one holds in store.
Okay. I mean, if this was the first, boy, cannot wait to see what comes next then. Oh man, that's impressive as hell.
Thank you.
So people, go follow Phillip, go sign up to the website. The links will be on the website, so make sure you go and show that love. And how can people cop some of your birch artwork?
Message me on Instagram. Yeah, check out my pieces there and message me.
All right, you heard it, people. Go do that. Phillip, man, this has been such an interesting conversation, man. Such an interesting conversation. Really enjoyed the film, and I'm glad we were able to make this work.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it's been a great conversation, and I'm really grateful to you. And hello, everyone. Sending my love.
Awesome, man. Well, when you've got the next project ready, please stop by and we can do this all again.
We'll do. And if you're ever in Los Angeles or in the States, hit me up.
I will do, man. Same if you come over this side of the pond.
Awesome.
Hey, take it easy, Phillip.
Take care.
Thanks.